Welcome to the Internal Wardrobe. This is a place to learn how to love yourself from the inside out. Today, our guest is Chantell Buggins, and she will be talking to us about her journey into helping people to overcome their fears and their traumas, to have a better life and to love themselves more. I think it's really fabulous. I've known you for a couple of years now, Chantell, and it's really incredible your journey. I mean, I've heard about your story, but I'd love if you would share how you ended up in this healing modality to help people.
Thank you, Gerlinda. Yeah, I started life off with a bit of a difficult childhood, but coming to where I have now, I started to realise as I got older that I felt like I needed to help other people through what I'd been through to help them have a better quality of life, to be free of the things that were holding them back from their childhood traumas. So, as a child, I never thought my parents were bad parents. They were good parents, but they were dealing with what they knew how to deal with their learnt behaviour and how they learnt to grow forward. But as about 5 or 6, my parents became violent towards each other. And it was a situational thing where we were living at the time. Dad was in a big earth moving business. It was that era where men were men, blokey men. And it just, for about a year and a half to 2 years, my parents had quite a lot of difficulty with their relationship. And some early mornings, I would wake up and run out to the kitchen or the living room and find my parents physically fighting and broken things everywhere. And, as a child, you don't really think that much about that until you get older and those kind of traumas start to play out. And then as an older or a younger teen, my brother started to get involved with stunt work. We became quite well known right around the world as the Dale Buggins stunt show, where Dale actually had a jump off with Eve Knievel and Gary Wells and went toured through America, and I became part of the show. Fantastic. It was amazing times, Our family were in the media, we were traveling all over the world, doing some incredible stuff. And at that time, I was 15 and 16, so quite a big thing for a young woman to take on. And my brother was 17, 18, and 19 during this time. And we did a big session in America, and unfortunately, we got heavily ripped off. The promoter didn't end up paying. And I think for my brother, that was possibly, after all the work, we had a really tough 3 months in the States doing a lot of hard work. And we came back to do the Royal Melbourne show. And so we landed in Melbourne. We didn't go home. We landed straight in Melbourne, and all our gear arrived up on the road because we had 2 sets of gear. I could go into quite a bit of depth here. I mean, back then, gun laws weren't what they are now, and I'm so grateful that the day those gun laws changed, it meant that someone like my brother just couldn't walk into a gun shop and buy a gun. But Dale did that and sat with that gun for 3 days, apparently, from the time he bought it, and then finally took his life, stating that I can't stand the world or the people in it, Dad. I take care of the family. I love you. Thankfully, now I've done so much work on myself that even though I can still feel a little bit of that in my body, because there's still a bit of cellular stress and anxiety in the body, and I'm still working through to get rid of that last little bit so that I can have those happy memories and still celebrate Dale's life without that little bit of whereas the tears and the actual depth of it's 40 years ago now, but still sits quite heavily, for somebody that hasn't worked through those things for themselves. So Dale took his own life, and that next morning I actually went into his room and found him deceased. So as a 17-year-old, just turned 17-year-old woman, all I can say is I lost my shit. I actually, I really lost my sense of self. I lost my confidence. I lost so many things. My parents, my father, when we got home back to our actual home in Duralong, New South Wales, my dad started drinking a bottle of scotch a day, and he completely lost control of his self. He was running around the paddock screaming and yelling and having the most amazing to see and witness attacks of panic and grief, to the point where we'd call the doctor and they'd come and sedate him. Then it was Mum's turn. Mum finally cracked it, and she went into a deep depression. And I was somewhere in the background. I had sort of said to Dad, maybe we should get some counselling, Dad, because I don't know how to deal with this. And back in the day, Dad was the guy that said, no, we don't see psychologists, we don't see psychiatrists, we'll work through this as a family. Commendable thought. Unfortunately, it didn't cut the mustard in the long term. So that level of grief sat with me for a very long time, until the last 10 years probably. And how that grief in my life, the seeing my parents doing my parents were good people, but they had their own troubles, So I never think of my parents as bad parents. They were there for her, they loved us, they treated us well, but they had their own stuff going on. And unfortunately, their own stuff, as is common for many people, when we get into each other's faces like that, everything, all common sense seems to drop away in some instances. Then I found we were already a family. My family drank. My family in the UK owned pubs, so drinking was quite a culture in our household. And I started drinking probably before Dale died, but in all earnesty, as Dale did pass away, so I was drinking quite heavily to rid the thoughts, I guess, just to block myself out from all that reality. And over the years, that came and went in different ways, but over the years it became where I became reliant on alcohol. Thankfully, I was aware enough that when I did dabble in a few drugs when I was younger, again, looking for that pain relief, I understood enough about myself and my personality to know that I needed to stay away from drugs, because it would have been the same thing, alcohol and probably the drugs. So I'm very grateful to my mindset for my ability to recognize that was something that I needed to keep away from. Otherwise, I definitely would have had a drug and alcohol issue to deal with. But as the life went on, I started to see that I was better than that and I needed to get help. So I started to get help with all kinds of psychologists, natural therapies, nutrition. And then I came across, I was a smoker. I smoked pretty much about the time Dale died, a little bit before that. And I got a hypnotherapist to help me with smoking, and I stopped immediately. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I was pretty stunned that it just worked like that. And actually, that one was in a group situation when I was 22, and then later in life, I had picked smoking up again after another tragedy in my life, and I then stopped with a one-on-one hypnotherapist. Life goes on, and I'm still struggling with my mental health and drinking, which of course they both work against each other. The drinking exacerbates the mental health, and the mental health exacerbated makes you drink more. So it's a vicious cycle. And then I got help with drinking to do the Kokoda in 2013, which was actually a suicide awareness for the Declan Crouch Foundation with Dr. Edward Coe, founded in here in Cairns. And I'm forever grateful for that journey in so many ways. I actually went and got the assistance that I needed. One was for resilience, to get fit and healthy. And the other one, I actually asked the hypnotherapist to stop me from drinking until I finished Kokoda, which was 7 months in the future. And lo and behold, I got to the finish line of Kokoda, super fit and healthy, made lots of friends. We were raising money for the suicide awareness, so we were a group of people in unison with our own pains around suicide, and we raised 84,000, so it was a brilliant trip. But as I crossed that finish line at Kokoda, I can't even describe to you how proud of myself I was, and there was beers on hand, and I just went, 7 months, my life has never been better, and I never looked back. I never went back to drinking. My life has enriched so much from that point. So just a bit of an insight into how trauma in childhood, how trauma as a teenager, and where there's no release for it, where you don't have any, like with Dad saying, we'll work together as a family, but unfortunately my parents were both devastated by the loss of my brother, and of course they suffered amazing amounts of guilt and shame, along with anger, sadness, and all the other emotions that we have. So it was quite a journey. I now look back and I used to think, why are these things happening to me? But now I know they happened for me so that I could arrive to where I am. So my destiny being that I was born to help other people, and it's something I'm very passionate about.
In this circumstance, you've turned what was something that was so tragic into an amazing healing journey for yourself, and not only for yourself, for other people, because now you actually do this for other people, don't you? Take other people through a journey.
And so for me, hypnotherapy it's probably one of the most powerful healing modalities that I've come across for my own well-being, my life. And I've done quite a lot of healing from anything from the natural world to the clinical world to get through, to where I am now. So first-hand experience of doing all those different modalities with healers. But for me, hypnotherapy is so gentle. Hypnotherapy is not what people think. So stage hypnotherapy is one thing, where and they agree. Those people on stage would not be able to do that if they had not agreed to the discussion they'd had with the hypnotherapist. Do you agree to come on stage and act like for fun? If they hadn't agreed, none of that would have been possible, because our unconscious mind won't allow us to do anything that is deemed to be not safe or something that we haven't allowed in. And that's really powerful information for people that may be fearful of hypnosis. I can't do anything to anybody under hypnosis that isn't in our contract or in our verbal agreement that they've come to see me for. So if somebody came to see me for drinking and they were smoking and taking drugs, but we agreed to do the drinking work, I couldn't then sort of drop in suggestions unless we had agreed they should stop smoking and drinking, because immediately the brain will just shut down and go, no, that's not what we agreed. But they're receptive to the drinking hypnosis. So put people's mind at ease that, hypnotherapists can't take your bank accounts, can't make you do crazy things in a day or two's time. It has to be in agreement with each other. So it's almost like a verbal or written contract, depending on who you go to and what the hypnotherapist uses. So hypnotherapy is not also where you will be completely blanked out. You hear my words. You are present. If there's a car goes by, you'll hear the car. But the way that we do the language that we use, it puts you into such a deep, calm state. It's like a meditation, but a little deeper. So you're in such a deep, calm place that we start to bypass the critical factors and we start working with your unconscious mind. Your unconscious mind is 95% of your mind, and 5% is our conscious. We're using our conscious mind now to communicate. I'm currently learning something else where it's called the limits. There's a gap. There's a gap in our brain where we actually know we're going to do or say something 350 milliseconds before we do it. So our brain is aware of our actions before we are. How crazy is that? So
that's crazy. It gives me like little goosebumps when you hear stuff like that. That's awesome.
That's brain working recursive therapy. So really interesting stuff to go into. So one of the other modalities that I do. But hypnosis is very gentle, and I explain this to people before they come in, before we get into the hypnotic stage, that you'll be comfortable. You hear my voice, you'll hear everything I say. Sometimes you'll drift off and you may not hear my voice and you'll be your own little wonderland, and that's perfectly fine. Because images, some people are very, very good at visualizing, and all the words I say, they visualize the journey that I take them on. Other people open their eyes and go, well, I heard everything that you said, and I don't think I was hypnotized. And then a week later they go, I haven't done that thing. So they haven't actually been hypnotized, and their unconscious mind has taken on the change work that they have come to see me for.
Incredible. And so what are some of the things that you can be hypnotized for?
Grief counseling, it can help alleviate grief, providing it's not like immediate. So if somebody had an immediate, whether it's a relationship or whether it's a death, loss of an animal, if in the grief moment, in that very first depth of the grieving process, and anyone who's grieving, I do recommend that you jump online and research the grieving process so that you're aware of the steps that go with grieving. But if you've gone past that first amount where you can now stop crying, then it's time to come and see someone like myself. We can do some grief work around that to help alleviate the depths of the pain. You'll still feel the pain, you'll still feel the memory, we don't erase memories in hypnosis, you keep the memory. It's like me talking about finding Dale deceased, opening that door and seeing him there. There was a time I couldn't even say that. I couldn't go to his graveside, but through hypnosis, it's now going in and you can still have the memory, but you've lost that fear association with it and the PTSD. So you can go along and do addictions. You can do relationship work. You can do literally just about anything can be healed or helped with hypnosis in combination with the other things that most hypnotherapists do. So NLP, timeline therapy, most NLP practitioners do some hypnosis, cognitive behavior therapies. So in conjunction with all of those things, I'm fortunate enough to have done quite a lot of training in various areas, strategic psychotherapy, that helped me to get clients through most. But the general ones are for addiction, anxiety, depression. They're probably the top ones that I see most often, but every now and then I get a few unusual ones. I'm seeing a client today whose husband died over 20 years ago and has just had a relapse of PTSD around his death. I won't go into too many details, but something's triggered that within her family, and she's rang me and said, I need to see you as soon as possible. I'm in this total grieving process. There's something that perhaps she hasn't recognized before, and it's a new emotion that's just come up for her.
We had a question in the chat, and it said, "What about the fear of successfully achieving something?" I think that's a great question.
Also known as imposter syndrome. I know that one because I've had it. When I first started to learn, I didn't think I was good enough to do the work, so I kept learning and kept learning and kept learning, which is great for me and my clients because now I have all these tools on board, but finally understand that I actually, even before I did all those extra training, that I had it. Fear of success is definitely something that we coach, both it's a coaching and hypnosis session so that we can understand how the brain is working and what it is where's your block. And quite often those blocks are a childhood block. It could have been as something as simple. This is crazy for some to grab hold of, but fortunately with all the education we've got going around the world these days, most people know this one, but it could have been as simple as your parent going to you, you're stupid, you're so dumb, why did you do that? As a child, in their 1 to 7 years of age, they're actually almost like they're in hypnosis for that whole period of their life. So they soak up all the good things and all the bad things, where they haven't been nurtured and loved, or where they've been nurtured and loved in this way but not that way. I mean, we're all human. That's why before I started talking about my parents, I mentioned about their lived lessons, their life lessons, and how they learned to work through their anxiety, grief and sadness. So quite often they're old perceptions, and they can easily be cleared through hypnosis. Generally with that, I will do two sessions, sometimes 3, depending on where it's coming from, because that may be coming from a place of trauma or sadness. And at that point, I'll use what I call my mindset reset program, which helps to work through the limiting beliefs and the negative emotions of anger, sadness, fear, hurt, shame, and guilt. That particular modality is one of my favorite ones to use because I use it over 4. When the person comes to the front door on their second or third session, I'm like, who are you? The eyes are shining, the skin's starting to shine, the way that they stand and hold their body, because a lot of the old negativity and the limiting beliefs have been lifted by them. And that's in answer to that question, the things where we think we can't do it, or the fear of success, or it's those limiting beliefs and those old negative emotions that are holding us back. And so we can lift those and let them go to bring back your true confidence and self-love.
It's really true, isn't it? When, as you were talking, I was thinking of even myself with imposter syndrome or being afraid to do some of the things, even using my voice to speak, whether I'm on the radio or just started a podcast or even doing these webinars. Before, there was so much self-doubt, and often we think it's that thing. So it might be, I want to do the webinar, but I can't do the webinar. But like you said, it's actually not the thing you're thinking it is. It's something completely different, like something that maybe have happened when I was younger. And I think and as a parent myself, sometimes we do say things to our children and then later go, oh, that was really awful. And I know my parents did things like that to me as well, but working through it and knowing, and there's so much to uncover, isn't there? I mean, I know I'm on this healing journey. It's not something that I think is ever necessarily complete.
I've got several modalities now that I have a preference for, but if I get something where I'm stuck, I can use those other ones. Timeline therapy, the Tad James timeline therapy, takes you back to when you're a child to the first memory of when you were angry or sad. It's the same principle or similar principle, but it takes you and it regresses you back. And for that's not good for or suitable for everybody because some people don't need to be regressed into an emotion from their past. The Emma Romano timeline reset, I've combined a couple of things now and call it my mindset reset, actually drops you into the anger and clears the filing system, so to speak. So there's no regression work in that. So it's not reliving any emotions. Really gentle, beautiful, gentle way to client. It's a work in progress with the therapist and the client. So it's not just sitting and receiving. It's a work relationship between the two of us where we have questions and answers and work through it that way. Seriously, astounding results. That blows me away.
I think too, sometimes it's really difficult for a lot of people. I mean, and especially I know for myself to sit with my emotions or to even be able to call it a name or know what I'm feeling. Because sometimes the sensations in your body are so powerful that you don't want to feel them. So instead of letting them arise, we can shove them down. And keep suppressing them. Yeah, and this is where this sounds like a really lovely way to go through the emotion and clear it, because often I know sometimes it's a build up, isn't it? When you snap at somebody or if you burst into tears, it's usually over a series of few things have happened. And like you said, like the filing system, it's one thing on top of another until it's got to come out at some point.
It's all overflowing
Um,
out the drawers, it's when we don't acknowledge something and we keep stuffing it down, it goes, hey, what about me? I need some attention. And it comes back up. And that's why things flare up in your life and give you that grief. And then we just push it back down. So the next time it comes up, it's a little bit more in your face. It's more urgent. It is a progression when we allow those things to escape, like the person I'm seeing today after this morning who has grief from 20 years ago. Something's bubbled up that wasn't dealt with or hasn't been accepted or acknowledged. So we're going to work on that today. So we're, like you said earlier, we're in progress.
we had another comment that said, sounds like this syndrome can be generational. Yeah, that it can be passed down. I even thought this morning about something my mum used to always say. So my mum would say to her mum, who do you love the most? And my nan would say, the one who needs me the most. And it's actually created my mum to not only be a needy person, but want to be needed. And then I was able to reflect and think, oh gosh, I do this in my life too. If somebody needs me, that's where all my attention goes. And then other things slip. But it's really fascinating when you can go generationally where you're picking up these things.
It can be in your very DNA where, and you may not even have seen it, witnessed, or heard it, but it's a generational thing where the pain comes with you. And it's something that is now becoming very much talked about in our First Australians, our Indigenous community, about the pain that has come with them through the generations, So opportunities there to do some amazing work. I've got goosebumps all over my body because that is I'm passionate about that, healing for anybody that has that generational hand down because they don't even know why they're feeling what they're feeling. They don't have a memory of why they're feeling, but it's in their DNA. And before I mentioned about my cellular memory, I don't know if you caught the live I did a couple of weeks ago about watching a video of my brother and I working at a Newcastle show. And I hadn't seen that video for maybe 35 years or something. And I started watching it and my mind was fine, but my body started to shake. And I got the feelings in here and I got short of breath. My mind was fully in. I didn't go into that tears or what I would have done before, But I just sat with it. I actually put my phone on and put it on phone call because I could feel I was feeling my body was getting into this really heavy cellular process. And I actually put 000 on my phone to press because I'm at home on my own. It was such a strong emotion and I watched and just felt it go through and I wrote down some notes of what I was feeling and how I was feeling it. And it was like I was back opening that door and seeing my brother deceased. How strong and potent is that? And that's why I mentioned sometimes I still have, when I talk about that, I still have some cellular memory there whilst I have a clear understanding in my mind.
Yeah, and they do say that it does. It stays in our cells, and so there's a lot of things like even I was reading a book recently, and it was talking about often people say that it's good to sit in meditation, and it took me 12 months of meditation practice to do that. But in this modern day, in this modern world, we don't have. It doesn't feel like we have enough time to sit and do those sorts of things, and how are we meant to quiet our minds enough to not recognize what is our thoughts and what are the thoughts that have come from somewhere else, and most of our thoughts aren't our own.
One of the questions I ask, even with goal setting, whose thoughts are these? Whose idea is this? Are these your thoughts? Who owns these thoughts? And they're like, because you can see the face going, well, they're mine. Well, no, I want you to have a bit more of a think about that. Who owns these thoughts? It's actually my dad. Or these are the goals my dad wanted me to set. Or these are the goals of my coach. Sit within and get congruent with what you want. What is it you really want? And take it. It could be far fetched. Throw it out there and then break it down into where it is you want to be.
That's a great tip, especially, I think a lot of people do things for the new year, and I don't necessarily believe in New Year's resolutions because they're always set up for failure. But certainly having goals that are your own and sitting down and having a beautiful reflection on the year past, and where you want to be in the new year as well, it can be a really powerful thing to sit and, like you said, think, is this actually is this my goal, or was this put upon me?
Yeah. And I challenge anyone then listening to this podcast now or in the future to just sit down right now and pop some things down there about what's happening in your life right now that you're not comfortable with and that you'd like to change. Doesn't mean you need to change them right now, but start to acknowledge them. And then in a couple of days' time, go back and make a resolution about what that is. Doesn't matter what day it is, what night it is, what calendar date.
We had another question, which was, if you're extremely intuitive, can you still have therapy? And I will just say, we're all intuitive beings. And once we clear a lot of the thoughts or the conditions that were placed on us, we can be aware of our intuition more. Do you find that that has an effect in therapy?
Do you want the therapy to work? Yeah. If you come to me and that's a block for you, then there's a block there thinking, well, I can't do this because I'm too intuitive. Take the T off. I can do this. I am intuitive and I'd like to learn more and to clear whatever it is that's holding me back from being even more intuitive.
I have had a session with you and I thought it was incredible. And I came to you because I was drinking wine every night, one or two glasses, sometimes a couple more, and it was having an impact on me the next day. And I didn't wake up as bright. I didn't feel very good. And so we went through a therapy where you helped me to reduce my drinking, which has been amazing because I'm very rarely hungover now, which has been such a blessing for me and my family and my work because I can do so much more. I feel better about myself, but I know that when we were doing the therapy, I think I made some comment about, oh, I should have done this or I should do this, and you're like, no shoulds. And it's often how much we tell ourselves what we should or shouldn't be doing, and that really stood out for me as something quite powerful. Like changing the words are important, like you said before, instead of saying, yeah, I can't do this because I can do this because.
Absolutely. And there are limiting beliefs coming up and our fears and our things that even today coming on to do this podcast, I had that moment of fear like, oh, will I be able to answer all the questions? And I was like, well, if I can't answer the questions, I'll come back and say, I'll come back to you and I'll find the answer and I'll bring it back to you. That they're blocks and there's a way around all the roadblocks, just even in life. When there's a roadblock up there, if you want to get somewhere, you'll go there. And it's the same for this, like there's so many things that we say, and you've recently caught me out because I said I should do this. And you went, I thought you told me you shouldn't say should. 56 years or whatever it is or 40 years or 30 years of language way back in there. So generally I do remember not to say things like that. But the other one that I'd like to point out now is, while we're talking about words, is try. I'm going to try to stop smoking. I'm going to try to stop drinking. I'm going to try to lose weight. I'm going to try and come to your house later. If you rang and said to me, Chantell, come over this afternoon for a cup or a drink or, come over for a chat, Oh, look, I'm pretty busy. I'll try to get there. Are you going to expect me to turn up?
No, and I try all the time. I'm having one of those this is me moments.
It's a really, you use it all the time. You try shoes on, you try clothes on, you try, different things on, and you'll either buy them or you won't buy them. Try is implied failure. So it gives you the out. When you find yourself saying to yourself, oh, I think I'll try to stop doing that.
That
I'm,
is so
I,
good.
I am going to start, or I am not going to start. Is if you start speaking congruently like that, you'll notice it easier to start those journeys.
I feel like you're talking straight to me now. I use that word so often.
We all do.
And it
Right?
is true. Yeah, and when I think about it, and I've had someone come back. I think I might have said it to my children. They're like, "That means no." So the people around you already know what that means.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I've used it so much in my life just to give me that out, to give me now I understand when I say try it, sometimes I actually query that. If I hear myself say, I go, oh, I need to be there.
ooh,
I now do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I need to be there. If I'm going to try to do that, I'm not going to go. I need to go. That person's asked me around for a chat and a cuppa and a catch up. Just 5 minutes, an hour. Just go.
and one of the greatest gifts you can give somebody is your time. I believe that's something that is so powerful to be able to give and share time with somebody.
And if it's
Absolutely, and
not,
thank you.
say it's not possible because I have a super busy schedule, between work and clients and socializing, because I love socializing, as you may know. Um, it's it is difficult to fit a life in, so if you think you're not going to be there, say, I don't think I can make it. If I can find that window, I'll let you know.
If somebody was wanting to come and see yourself or a hypnotherapist, what are some things that they should look for in a hypnotherapist, but also what maybe some questions or something that they should have in mind before coming along?
Quite often, I've had so many people sit in my little chair there behind me who have come for a specific thing. And when we get talking, because I ask questions that are designed to bring forward their emotions, and so we can acknowledge those things. Not if we get into discomfort, we check in, do you want to go here or do you not? So that there's no forced, nothing's forced, it's all agreed upon. So with addiction, there's a driving force as a general rule, and it's possibly trauma. I can't put a statistic on it, but it's high. I'm not prepared to put a number on it because I don't know the actual number, but I know that the amount of people that come and sit in this office for one thing, we end up doing something else first. So I would say there's amazing therapists and coaches, and there's so many wonderful things coming up, more natural way of approaching our health. And I'm so pleased and I'm happy for all the people that do the work I do to, be there and be in competition with me, because the more people doing this work, the more people that can be healed. I would say that the couple of biggest things is to make sure they actually have the qualifications. Experiences, sometimes they may not have necessarily the experience in their chosen field because it's something that's new and upcoming, and lots of people are learning it right now, and some people are making amazing inroads. Remember their life experiences as well. I've been doing this about 4 years now, really seriously, probably for the last year and a half. But my life experiences are what people come to see me for, because in fact, I was in a training course the other day. It's just a shout out to myself, I guess, a bit of a proud moment, as I went to a therapist 9 years ago who's a psychologist, a hypnotherapist, brain working recursive therapy coach. And I was in the brain working recursive coach Facebook page putting in a comment, and she said to me, Chantell, I'm so pleased to see you here. And I said, do you remember me from all that time? She said, of course I remember you. I'm the person that told you need to be a coach or a hypnotherapist. 9 years
Oh,
ago. She said,
so
you've
you
got,
already implanted it.
yeah. She said, you've got PTSD, addictions, you've got all these life lived experience, being in the limelight. all of those things. She said, and you're so empathic. I was like, oh, thank you. So, yeah, maybe she was the one that planted the seed. But going back to finding the person that's right for you, check that they do what you want. Yeah, she did believe in me. Thanks, Anna. Um, check what they're doing, and what they're doing is something that you resonate with and it feels right. Just check in and see if it feels right. The other thing is, I often have my clients sit in here, and they pay up front as a general rule. But I'll do the first 30 minutes, and then at 30 minutes I'll say, do you feel comfortable with me? Do you feel that, we have a good relationship and we can work through this together? Do you feel that you're trusting with me? Because if you're not feeling, it's really important that we have that communication and that rapport. And if you're not feeling it, then, give me your bank account details and I'll refund you now.
I think that's
And that
very important.
it's so
That's spot
important,
on.
because
Yeah.
I know I've been to therapists before and I've walked out of there and I thought, the person it just didn't resonate with me. And some of the way, even their body language didn't resonate with me.
And
So
sometimes it can be, like you said, an unconscious thing. I know for my kids, I send them all to therapists just because I'm like, what did I do to you? Go and get fixed. But I remember my youngest went and saw someone and walked in and said, "Oh no, mum, that reminded me of this other person, and I didn't feel comfortable with them." And it was the way the person looked and just spoke. It wasn't the person's fault. It was just a memory.
with that bring up,
And
yeah,
acknowledging that for yourself when, yeah, if you do walk in and you go and see a therapist, that it might not be the one for you as well, but definitely having somebody like yourself that is really open about that, I think that's very, very beautiful.
it's really important with me that we have a connection. And I'll also ask, why. But the other thing that's really super, super important is, if you're coming to me for drinking or smoking or an addiction or an affliction, that you're there for yourself. Your husband, your wife, your children haven't said, you need to stop. And so you pick the phone up and you dial a therapist and you turn up, they take your money and they treat you. You can't, it's not as simple as that. If your mind's not there for you, then that therapy is not going to be as effective. When you
That is
walk through
very,
my
very
door,
true.
you walk through because you're ready, you're truly ready. It still could be for the family, but it's your decision. You need to sit with it and be congruent with it and be, this is my life choice. I'm doing this for my health and well-being and self-love.
Thank you so much for joining me today on the internal wardrobe, Chantell. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned so much, and I can't wait to do some more work with you, because as we were speaking, I think there's some stuff that I could definitely be working on. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Gerlinda. I've really enjoyed this today. Thank you so much.